if somebody said right now, like, hey, man, here's a property in Columbus, right? 150 acres in Columbus. You can kill 200-inch deer every year. I'll sell it to you for $10 million. I don't have $10 million. Like, right. That's not, the ceiling is much higher than
I know
both
people that do.
I know, right? Let me call somebody. Let me make a phone call.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Hoyt.
What can we say, man? Another year back with Hoyt. We're both shooting RX8s. I'm shooting 70 pounds in the bourbon, which I love bourbon.
That's great.
And you're shooting 80 pounds in the straight black.
Blacked out as always, man. I got so I'm shooting the 500 grain Easton Arrow this year. And at 80 pounds, I'm flinging that thing at like 300 feet per second. I mean, it's deadly. Put a water buffalo in front of me and he's done.
I mean, we shot it earlier. You literally put an arrow through a brand new target, like never been shot before.
I know. So one other thing that Hoyt is doing this year is they're making all their own strings in-house. And so the quality is top notch, and it just really is something that is setting them apart from their competitors.
Well, what we always try to do when we go to our bow shop, Ultimate Outdoors, is we try to shoot other bows just to make sure that we are really giving everybody a fair chance. Sure. The reality is it's a no-brainer. Hoyt stands above all of them every single time.
Definitely. And so right now you can use code HUNTR, HUNTR, for 20% off any apparel on the Hoyt website. And as always,
get serious, get Hoyt. And we're back.
Hey-o.
HUNTR Podcast. You see that was delayed. My clap. I was like, okay.
What?
My clap was delayed.
Oh.
Yeah. HUNTR Podcast.
That was me trying to pull a delayed joke and it didn't work. Because you kept talking.
Too late in the
day.
What? Episode 228. As Nick keeps us in line, he's here. He's going to get food because he's got to feel the body.
Hey, thank you guys at home for listening, whether on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. We appreciate you guys being here sincerely. We drop these episodes on Tuesday and Thursday nights at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And if you've written us on Instagram DM or the website, we are pretty up to date with that. So be happy with us.
Yeah.
for doing that. So
there might be a few Instagram ones slinging out there, but it's the long ones. And it's not that we don't read them. It's just when I open it and it's longer than what I see in the screen, I just close it. And I will come back to it. I just can't at that
We do
time.
appreciate it. It's just a challenge. And they usually start with, you probably get this all the time, but and they involve pictures of deer, pictures of property, and there's a thought process involved. So
there will be a response that happens.
Yeah, they're not neglected. They're merely
I might answer some tomorrow, but it's going to be cold in the morning too, so I don't know if I will. It'll be like really cold. We'll figure it out.
Well, anyways, we have some merch on the website.
Yep.
A lot of you guys have bought that stuff, an overwhelming amount, and that's pretty cool. So we appreciate that. That helps us, fund some of the stuff that we do here, and especially Nick appreciates that because that's how he gets paid. Mm-hmm. And so thank you guys for doing that. And
here we go. If you're listening to this, it's December 19th, Thursday. We are recording this Thursday the 12th.
When is this going to air? Every single time you say that, it pops into my brain.
Thursday, yep. It is Thursday the 19th if you're listening to this or later. We're recording this on Thursday the 12th. It is the last week of the gun season in Pennsylvania. It is, if you're listening to this on Thursday the 19th, this weekend is the second gun season in Ohio. They have to survive, Jared.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some muzzleloader seasons happening, and the South is cranking. We just talked to William McKinley. Mississippi's probably in full rut.
Yep, full mess.
And that's where we're at. It's cold. It's not going to be cold this week, though. I think it's supposed to be mild this week, 40s. Yeah,
it's an interesting space. I think every year it's like we reach this. There was no super low point of depression. There was a steady trickle of
optimism. Death.
Yeah, death. Usually it's all at once, and that's hard to handle. Although there were a few days that were.
Well, I don't know. I mean, has there it's normally your Ohio property. You are sending me pictures of there's this deer that the neighbors killed. I didn't get that from you this year.
I don't think I sent them to you.
Did they die?
Yeah, they died.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was just more of it's become more of an expectation. So
okay.
There are properties that like the Hall, for instance, they're like, I don't think there's not a 3-year-old on it.
Really?
Yeah, complete waste.
Wow.
The Hinton, I pulled out. It's at a certain point just because I was in doubt.
Mm-hmm.
See how I brought that full circle?
Therefore, you do.
There is, I believe, there is a nice deer there that I would shoot. I mean, he's of age, 5-year-old 8 point.
Of age.
He's of age.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know. He's there. It wasn't real consistent. That was the deer that I was real confident that we were going to kill. Corey and I were going to kill. And he just didn't. He didn't do that again.
No, it's kind of weird.
Do it? It's
maybe crop rotation.
Maybe we have had unfavorable crop rotations for 2 years in a row. Those properties really suffer when they're beans, because they all reach a point when the crops come off that they're difficult to access. But at least while the corn is standing, we stand a chance.
It's clean. Mm-hmm.
We have a chance. So that deer might be over there. All the ones that are left are on the Roberts, and that's just because there's no immediate hunting pressure.
And there's really only one 5-year-old you'd shoot there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. The others are a 4-year-old who's already been wounded, and the 2 3-year-old big ones, which is good.
Yeah. So they're there.
So they got to make it through this weekend. That's the big one.
And thinking back on it, the ones that got shot were all mostly archery season.
Interesting, huh?
Mostly archery season.
Not much in gun season being shot. Not much left to shoot.
There wasn't much left to shoot, I think. Yeah. Ugh. Yeah, a lot of them got shot during.
Well, we even talked about like your satellite properties that usually pick up some good deer.
Yeah, not so much. Very stagnant. This deer is still around. Mm-hmm. This tight rack
Which
deer.
Jed's hunting.
And Jed's, seems like he wants to.
But other than that, like, no.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Nothing on Glasgow or anything.
Like some of those big 3-year-olds from your past.
Yeah, I don't know. Don't know. That one in particular
weird
kind of surprised me because it's like about November, you'd think they'd start milling through. I don't think I had a deer over 130 on there this year. Like there was one that I was like, he might be 4 or maybe 5. You know what I mean? Like just a real basic 8 point. Yeah, that one was surprising. I don't know, man. I think some properties just go through seasons like that, like for whatever reason. I don't know if it's crop rotations or immediate pressure.
It's got to be. I mean, especially in the bigger ag areas.
The acorn thing was big this year in Ohio for sure.
Yeah. Well, we talked about like the crop rotations even in Illinois, right? This is only second year of owning it. All beans around. Last year was all corn around, and so very different deer on that property than last year.
Yeah.
Very different deer.
Yeah.
Like almost all of them replaced and
out there, I don't think they're dead. I think they're just like, I think it's more of a shift out there as opposed to in Ohio. I think they're, I think they're dead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing, having just come off this podcast with William on Tuesday, in this MSU study of these deer movements, my head's just spinning. I'm like, are they doing that? Mm-hmm. Like where we're at? Mm. Can they do that? Because if you're telling me these deer are moving 4, 5, 10 miles, like
it's possible.
It's possible, but I just find it so hard to believe because it's like the deer I know are the deer I know. Yeah. The ones that there are no.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was gonna say you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And all we know as 2024 hunters, a lot of non-residency and stuff is like it's what you get pictures of, and so. It's funny, like there's probably even, you could assign a word or a term to like the syndrome where and it's not down. It's it's when a camera is down.
Yeah.
And in your brain, like the deer over there don't exist anymore. You know what I mean? It's just like.
Yeah. It's basically you're blinded.
And it almost takes you a while. Like if you have a bunch of cameras stacked into like a roll, it may be 3 or 4 days before, unless there's a deer that's been there every day, that it'll die or something, that you're like, what's going on? I haven't seen this deer in a while. And you're like, oh, that camera died. Like,
camera died. Yeah. Well, I told you even like in Ohio, I had these big bait pals out leading up to gun season. Right at the end of gun season, like just gone, like nothing left. And like every day it was like same 3 to 4 year old bucks in there, gone. Like they're not dead. They just left. There's no food. So
dude, it's like it's a lot of fun to try to put yourself in the mindset of the deer. Like a lot of us, like we talk about them like they're just part of the landscape. Like they're just oh yeah, they're out there, but like they're like they're not reasoning creatures, but they are like they think still. Like they, they can perceive like,
there's a process.
Hey, I'm hungry. Like, there's this food's not here.
It has to be, I would think, reliable or somewhat
They're
reliable.
not dumb. They're not smart, but they're not dumb. Like they can think enough to be like, I better go somewhere where there's food or where there's, better cover given the situation or whatever. So they do it. It's just, and then we're so baffled where we're like, there should be deer here. And then, but
well,
no,
this is the bait state stuff that I think really doesn't surprise me. But like when gun seasons end in bait states, deer show back up.
I do think that was a good point you made there.
Yeah, because people just stop feeding.
Yeah. That makes total sense.
They stop putting corn out, corn goes away or food goes away, and they go back to where either you're still baiting because you want to see what's left, or you have food plots or whatever that are still standing and it's reliable food.
That's part of the game. It's like who can start baiting first. Because if you can...
Would you call it a masturbator?
I would call it the first baiter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, whoever starts baiting first,
Pre-baiting.
If you can pull them in and hold them there and they have no reason to leave, then
it's tough, though.
You have some advantage.
As an absentee landowner, it's tough because,
for
they go through it fast.
They do.
Yep. And I think still some leave. Like we've talked about it before. It's like you can't just stack 4 and 5-year-old bucks in a 200-acre property. Like they don't get along.
The right property, I think you can. Well,
it depends on if you say like, hey, I've got 2 or 3 4-year-olds and 1 or 2 5-year-olds. Like I would consider that stacked in a 200-acre property. But you're not gonna have 4.
It totally
and
depends
5.
on the property. Dude, I have seen 200-acre properties that are like you would think it's 600 acres because it's just
big
density of cover and terrain and stuff like that. Dude, Ohio's just not that way. Ohio's just like. To people to have been there and maybe have seen some of the Midwest stuff to contrast it to, it just looks like Ohio woods. It's just open.
Yeah.
A lot of it is just open, and it's like timber ridges, and
I was trying to relate that.
It's just not that thick. It doesn't hunt that big as some other states.
I was trying to relate that. Like, there's been a handful of properties I've been on that are relatively small, but when you get on them, you're like, holy shit! Like this thing is huge. Like even that Kentucky lease that we had, even though it was really hard to hunt, and there were good deer on it, not consistent, but it was like the thing felt like 1,000 acres, and it was like I don't know 250 or 300 acres.
Yeah, because it was so much up and down, and it was so hard to navigate.
Yeah, it was just like you got back
we
to the
died on that.
I know you got back to the back corner of the property, and it was like holy shit! I'm 4 miles from my vehicle. I feel like. So yeah, you have those places that fill, but then you have other ones that I'm like, I breeze through it and I'm like, boy, that's small property. And I'm like, that's 300 acres. You just like walk right through it because it's open, or like, especially in those big open hardwoods at this time of year. Dude, you see right through a half a mile. Like,
yeah, I think the deer feel that way too. Like just the density of cover and habitat, like it's not like they need vast space. Like it's not like they want to walk, miles and miles. It's just like what are they doing and what can they accomplish, and then how secure can they feel and stuff. So that's the objective, I think, is to get them to spend as much daylight hours on your farm as possible, and the way to do it is to have it be as dense as possible.
Yep, I think that's it. And now is the time. We talk about like I'm going to go out and hunt public tomorrow, but like now's the best time to walk your woods and understand. Like I was looking behind my house, I'm like, I can see everything.
Yeah,
and I'm like, that's not good. Like, right. It's a light dusting of snow, and like even areas where I'm like, I cut down there, like it's pretty thick, right? I'm like, not thick at all. I see right through it. So can they. And so like those are the areas now that I start to like take mental note of, and I'm like, boy, I really need to chainsaw the shit out of that.
It's hard, man. That's you and I like the whole premise of like every cover conversation that we come down to is, how do I like make habitat out of nothing, essentially? And it's not like nothing. It's like it's either open pasture ground or ag ground or timber for the most part. Those are the areas that probably like need addressed.
And the reality is on all three of those, even if there's an activity, cutting timber, planting something, burning something, time is the biggest factor. Is like any of those activities that we do will not yield the ultimate habitat next year.
Well, the fastest one I think is if you could burn through your timber and then clear cut sections. I think that's the fastest way to do it.
It's still going to take two to 3 years to maximize that.
to maximize it, but you'll have dense cover. Like if
you'll have cover next year. I mean,
you,
I've got cover on my Ohio place this year. 7 months after they stop.
If you burn through it and then you clear cut an area, it's gonna have cover standing through December. You know?
But it still will be 2 or 3 years before it's like prime cover.
Yeah, it'll continue. There is a tipping point too. I mean, I can't say that I've seen it necessarily, like where you almost have to reset. I don't know, because it's like the big stuff, the trees die eventually. Even the hinge cut stuff and the tops, like
sure.
Once that goes away, you want it to be replaced by whatever's growing back up through. But then even that stuff becomes woody and less.
Gets too big.
It gets.
You got to set it back.
Less Forby and all that. So then I guess you burn again.
Burn again, or if you let it go too long, it's cutting again, or like a drum mulcher or something. It's all about sunlight to the ground and not leaf matter on the ground.
Yeah. HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Deer Grow.
Man, we've been using Deer Grow products for a long time. The Plot Start and Plot Boost, more recently Plot Till. Now we've got 3 new liquid fertilizers that have been put in the mix that will cover everything we could want for a food plot program.
It's huge, man. The more food plotting we do, it's like, man, the liquids just make sense. Like whether it's herbicides or the Plot Start and Plot Boost, and now the fertilizers get mixed in. It's like, man, I can combine all of those in certain cases and do less passes for more results.
I mean, it's all about efficiency. I mean, like you said, less passes. If you're out there treating your beans with glyphosate in the summertime, you can mix in this fertilizer, do that all at once. You have the boost in there that helps the metabolism. It's all about efficiency when we're talking about food plots. And really the big difference on these liquid fertilizers is you're bypassing some of these soil limitations, pH limitations, the soil type. In a lot of cases, we talk about dry fertilizers only being available for 17% of what you put down in the first year. These liquid fertilizers straight into the plant are 90% available in the first year. Huge difference in what you're going to see in growth.
It's huge. And so right now you can use code HUNTR15 for 15% off any of the Deer Grow products on their website. And as always,
better food plots, bigger deer.
It's tough. Like the Midwest has it easy from that standpoint in that like a lot of this I've hunted fields that like not long before were ag fields.
And then they just
were gnarly, 10 foot tall, like just saplings and like just crazy stuff in Illinois. It was Illinois. Southern Illinois.
Yeah.
Southern Illinois.
Yeah. And, soil quality.
And that doesn't happen up here. And, ours is just fescue and.
I know. Well, we talk about like the soil quality of some of these places, and it's like these soils are built to grow stuff. And like, frankly, our farms are not. I mean, our Illinois farm is, but like our home farms are not.
Right.
And so it's like, whether it's warm season grasses or like, I think this is the 3rd season that I've kind of let a couple big fields on that new Kentucky farm just go fallow. Like I just want them to get brushy and, throw briars and whatever. And it's like 3 years into it, I'm like, there's some stuff in there, but like it's, it's not great.
So I'm 2 years into one of them where we sprayed, it was the Craig Harper method.
Mm-hmm.
We go ahead. You want to say it?
just let it grow. Just let it go.
Just let it grow. We sprayed in the fall for it was just glide. It was like 2 quarts per acre, probably of glide,
to kill that fescue.
1 or 2 to kill the grass that was still there, and then everything under it did pretty well the following year. I think though that if you really want that stuff to succeed, you have to continually treat the cool season grasses.
They're just coming back up through it.
Yeah, there's just more. There's so much of it in the seed bed. Like, we killed what was on top and we burned off any of the thatch and we released what was dormant underneath of it, which was the good stuff. But there's still fescue in there.
So like, what does the composition of that stuff look like right now?
I mean, I would say there's the best stuff is probably 4 or 5 foot tall.
Okay.
And it's good, but
what is it? Is it like briars?
It's a mixture
stuff?
of briar. Yeah, there's multiflora. There's like probably some green briars and blackberry. Like I don't know. I'm not a
that's what you want.
Forb specialist, but yeah, it's like good stuff. The first year there was some real stocky stuff.
I think that was like goldenrod or something.
It may have been,
or ragweed.
It may have been. I don't think it was. Whatever it was dense stalks, and it just came up in pockets. I mean, that's what you're gonna have.
Yeah, an annual disturbance.
And a lot of that stayed, because we haven't had any. There's no real hard snows or anything. It's not Wisconsin
to knock it over.
or anything. So yeah, it kind of stands. But there's other. I don't know. It's one of them things where like deer probably are bedding in it from time to time. It's not. I'm not treating it like it's not a sanctuary or anything.
Because you think about like an old field, like classic old fields. Deer use the shit out of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's thick, it's gnarly. They're bedding in it. There's browse there, and like
I think you're better off. Like what I want is, and maybe not literally, but I'm just saying, like I want like an autumn olive thicket. Like, you know what I mean? I want overhanging branches. I want, but it doesn't have to be tall. I don't want timber. I don't want shade. I just want density of cover.
Yeah, at deer level. Maybe
autumn olive is the right thing. I mean, I'm sure it's an invasive, but
it's a non-native. People call it. I mean, it's some of the best habitat and reclaimed strip lines that you can have.
Right.
Half of West Virginia is autumn olive.
Yeah.
Especially as you get down into those bow hunting only counties, you find a strip job with autumn olive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I wonder if anybody's just planted a field of autumn olive for deer cover.
The Game Commission did it in Pennsylvania for years, and then they got slapped, I guess, by somebody who said, "Don't plant this anymore because it takes over."
Oh, because it's an invasive.
Mm-hmm. But it is an invasive that it chokes out natives. But it's also good wildlife habitat.
So why is that bad? Why is it?
Well, eventually it matures so far that then it isn't really good wildlife habitat.
Mm-hmm.
And most people would rather have natives in place of that. But it comes down to what? Do I want tulip poplars because they're native? No, because they suck.
I don't know.
You know what I mean? It would be better if that was just a massive chunk of, blackberry and black raspberry and stuff. Great.
But even that doesn't that's not what I want either. I don't think. You want yeah. This is why it's
some
such
edge and structure there.
Yeah, I want structure.
Well, that's why
I want it all.
That's why most people with switch will plant groups or lines of miscanthus in there to create vertical wall structure that those deer want to be up against.
Yep. I do think that some incorporation of switch, and I guess this would be interesting in hindsight to look back at, because we've had a lot of conversations about switch over the years and how to use it, but it does seem like I feel pretty strongly at this point that some inclusion of switch in a in that type of setting is necessary or it will help, but it's not necessarily
the monoculture is not what you want though.
You definitely don't want that. In fact, I think you want it fairly thin. I think you want it stacked with other things in there. But that's the challenge. It's what
are those?
Yeah.
Because if you plant we talked about okay, what about white pines and stuff? Well, then you can't burn.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the way that you want to manage your warm season grass.
Yep. And if it's a CRP program, we can't put miscanthus in it because it's not a
correct.
It's not a native or whatever.
Yeah, and so they're obviously oaks are fire fire resistant type trees, but yeah, I don't know what because you really do want a native old field. If I took an old ag field and I let it just grow up for 7 years, that's what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be gnarly, and it's going to have a mix of things. It's going to have some timber. It's going to have some, brush. It's going to have some briars in it.
See, that's what I'm saying, though. In theory, it should. And if your dirt's really good, it probably will. But, we've seen enough of that go. And I guess that first year, the one that I'm talking about is we're in year 2, so we'll see what the next 4 years look like, unless I get frustrated with it and, want to do something faster. But it's an endless question mark for me of what can I plant / release to this, old cattle pastures and stuff to make them thick, dense deer habitat.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't found the answer in, the 4 years I've been trying to do it.
No, honestly, it's where I'm a bit thankful that I have timber, because I think if in Ohio, I cut that timber and that sunlight hits the ground. In a best case scenario, I run a fire, but even without that, it's thick, it's gnarly, and it's gonna get thicker and crazier the next 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point you got to set it back, or it becomes then just stemmy and not preferred habitat for deer.
Right.
Or you're on the other side. I look at my house and I'm looking straight through the woods to a half a mile to the highway, and I'm well, this sucks. What's one guy with a chainsaw gonna do? You know, you got to come in there, and we talked about like picking and choosing those, you know, half-acre type clear cuts and just clear cut that. But even still, like it won't be like in a year, that's not going to give me habitat next year. It will give me some, but not perfect. Like it's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now before that's like that thick in that half acre.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a constant battle, frankly. I mean, every year it's like, you know, I'm grateful for pockets of timber that I can go in and clear cut. And I haven't run out of those yet. You know, they last several years, you know, once you do that. And, you know, but eventually, you got to circle back to them and you're like, what do I do? You know, a lot of people are not, myself included, comfortable with timber burns. No. Especially when you got natural gas lines running in a few different areas. You got to watch that, you know.
Yeah, that'll go.
But
she'll go.
Yeah. So that's where, I mean, that's definitely, and I do think that there's more of a natural grass component. I do think from a price standpoint, I do think that there's some CRP opportunity. I'm really just like,
it's gonna happen.
That's gonna consume
new farm bills coming.
That's gonna consume a lot of my effort on the Ohio farm once that is a possibility. Is considering which CRP programs to enroll some of that into, strategically how to do it.
Yeah, what's that even look like? Like I think we've learned like you don't want 50 acres of switch.
I just want it as thick as it can be. And also like if there can be a food element to that too, like I'm not one of those guys that's like, well, you don't want food in your cover because then they'll never come out. If I have 8-year-olds that will never come out, I don't care. I'll find a way.
Yeah,
I'll kill them somehow.
Well, that's where I think a monoculture switch is not good because there is no food in there, right? You need browse in there, or you need, you know, cool.
They also won't bed in there though. There's nothing. The only thing that's good about a contiguous stand of switch is it can be dead space. It can be a visual barrier from point to point, and it's dead space to blow your wind into. Otherwise, you know, what good is it?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, because I mean, we have a 30-acre switch field, or warm season grass field in our Illinois farm. And they moved through it and around it, but they didn't just like pop up out of it necessarily. There were a couple when they were locked down with does, but like even when you saw that was what he was around that big like bushy tree and stuff in there. So there was structure within that, and that was foxtail because it's foxtail.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's definitely valuable. If it's tall enough to like that they feel safe in it, like they'll transition through it, and if there's enough structure in it, they'll bed in it. But either way, you don't want it at like, you know, a lot of guys are saying 8 to 10 pounds an acre. Like I think you want to be at like 4 to 5. Yeah, and then have it filled in with everything else,
natural browse and all this other stuff come through.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, that's the biggest part I think trying to evaluate, especially at this time, because you're looking at bare bones woods at this point, and so it's like, where are deer at? What are they utilizing? What are they not utilizing? It's easy to evaluate your food at this part in the year, but you know, from a habitat, from a bedding side, like where are you finding deer beds? Where are they moving through? What are they using? It's pretty easy to walk out, especially with like we've got dusting of snow out there and being like, you know, why would a deer be here? They can see everything. There's no cover whatsoever. There's no security, you know, unless it's an advantage, you know, topographically because of the wind and elevation, like, and they're probably not going to be there.
Yeah.
They're moved through in it.
I mean, that really is a big component of, you know, that makes property seem like they hunt small or big too, is the topography. And like the more advantages that deer have, the smaller the property is going to hunt.
Yes.
Because the less you can get away with from an access standpoint.
I think that was a huge piece before I cut my Ohio. You know, I was at 130 acres, but those deer could see everything because it was wide open. And so like, even if, and honestly, I don't blame them for not being on that property at this time of year last year, because there was no secure bedding. Like there was some elevation that they may have been able to use, but like there was no security cover. They could see, you know, I had one spot basically I could hunt in the bottom, and even that was risky because they could still see me. You know, as to now where it's thick all over and I've got multiple access points. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a big piece of you know, what looked good in October looks very barren in middle of December.
I do think that's honestly one of the biggest advantages. It's just, you know, this would be a blanket statement, but I think that's one of the things that makes the Midwest generally easier to hunt than the Northeast is the topography.
Sure.
I think flat stuff is way easier to hunt.
Absolutely.
Because the deer have less advantages. I've been on properties, frankly, some of ours in my Ohio farm are this, where it's just like, I don't know how you could ever hunt it. It's like, because when you get into those deer beds and you see how they're using the property, you're like, they have every advantage. There's is the minute I step foot on this property, like they know you're here.
Yep. They see you or they wind you. And
so your only option at that point is to sell the property or, get really creative with access, but even then, you're going to have limited opportunities to do it. You can only get away with it so many times.
HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Pure Wildlife Blends.
Yeah, buddy. We're doing a lot of food plots this year. It seems like the planning, the preparation, like the coordinating for getting everything, in the ground, it's like it just never ends.
Yeah, and I just got off an 18-hour bender where I'm on multiple farms getting everything ready. But this year, fortunately, we've got Pure Wildlife Blends, which is Jeff Sturgis. Who better to partner with for our food plot program than a guy who's got 30 years of experience, been on thousands of farms. I mean, the guy lives and breathes food plots.
Yeah, and so the blends themselves are all handpicked by Jeff, and it's like, man, we've had a lot of conversations with him over the years, and he's been pretty influential on how we set up farms and stuff. And frankly, the product, it's in the name. It's Pure Wildlife Blend. So a lot of these other seeds that you see that are blue and orange and all these things, it's because they're coated with lime and they're dyed, and it's marketing at the end of the day. So we have a lot of confidence in the seeds that Jeff has chose, and that's what we're going to be planting this year. And so right now, you can use code HUNTR10 for 10% off anything on the website.
So if you're looking for switch, clover, brassica, or Jeff's favorite, layer in the rye.
Layer in the rye.
Yep. Check out purewildlifeblends.com. The cool part about walking around right now is like, and again, not everywhere, but a lot of us have in and out dustings of snow and stuff. Like the ability to go in and see signs and beds and tracks and kind of what these deer are doing, especially with gun seasons winding down or even over. Like you've got a really good idea. I always like to try to manage a property for the bare bones. So it's like if I go out there now and I see, there's one section of bedding, right? And the rest of this, maybe it looked good at one point, but none of this is thick. They're not using any of it. This is where I want to focus my time to make this look like that. And so, it's easy to get caught up in the summer and even in the early fall of like things looking good and deer using it as bedding. But like now is the best time to go out there and really say, wow, this is more open than I thought. I need to cut all of this, or I need to, hinge cut this, or I need to burn this, or whatever it is. Because it's, the deer are confined to the best bedding spots at this point, and thermal cover's a part of that in terms of whether it's a south-facing slope and or just like, hemlocks or pines or whatever for spruce for a thermal cover aspect too. But yeah, I mean, it's a good time to be in the woods, regardless if you're focusing on like a hunting aspect or not. It's just a lot of us are like, we're kind of rut worn at this point. It's like, boy, we've hunted hard for 2.5 months, and it's like, maybe we were successful and then that, lacks motivation to go out, or maybe we were unsuccessful and then that lacks motivation to go out. But I think it's a really good time over the next 4 weeks or so to just spend a lot of time in the woods, especially if you're not fearful of like bumping deer and your neighbors killing them or anything like that. Like it's just a good time to get out there and get visualization on what deer are experiencing and seeing. And I think it's pretty eye-opening.
It's cold.
Yeah, well,
that's probably what keeps me from doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. Well, Harlan and I went out, was that Sunday? We went out on Sunday and walked on the mountain because it was like 50 degrees and the snow was there was still some snow on the mountain, but it was melting everywhere else. So we pulled like 2 or 3 cameras. It was funny. We walked up on this one spot, like both spots. My cameras didn't show like anybody on it for like the first week of gun season. Both spots we get up to, and I mean, it looks like, there was a parade that went through of people. I'm like, okay, well, guys have been hunting here. Not surprised. Like they're easier access areas. So we walk back the one, and as we're going back, I see the game cart and I see blood drops, and I'm talking to him. I'm like, well, obviously a bunch of guys were back here, and you could see this is the game cart tracks, and you see this is blood in the snow. So they had a deer on there pulling out. So we get to the next spot. Bunch of tracks, no game cart marks, but we walk up and I was like, hey, look at that, and picks up, there's a 30-30 casing on the ground. I was like, well, somebody was standing right here on the road. I said, probably right here, deer running through. Walk up another 50 yards. There's a big gut pile right there. I'm like, well, I killed one right here. So
old man knows what he's talking about.
yeah, it's like, so, it's funny you go through that, but like just trying to put it in his mind, it's like, hey, like I had no guys hunting on camera, any of these. Clearly a lot of pressure still on those spots. So, we got up, we moved some of those cameras. I pulled a couple of them. I've got a few more out still to move and kick around. But no, it was good to get, because it was one of those 50-degree days where you could get out in the snow and read sign and stuff, but it didn't feel like it was 20 degrees. So unlike today or tomorrow, it's going to be freezing out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there is plenty of time too. I mean, I don't know. I've never gone real nuts with like the January, February scouting because season's still in, and in Ohio it goes clear through the first week of February.
The first week of February.
I worry about pushing deer off before they shed.
Yep. That's a big piece.
Because I'm like, I want to find them, and I'm like, in that point I know, or that property I know for the most part. So I don't know. It's more of a, I think for me it's more of like we've been so honed in on these properties and certain deer on them and trying to kill them, to now is kind of the time, unless you've got like a lingering late season pattern that I zoom back out. And that's why we start looking at, like, we start talking about Kansas again. I'm like, oh yeah, might draw for North Dakota again. And then all of a sudden I'm behind on preparing for those.
Yeah. For these new places.
It's like, yeah, you can never have enough time on them. So I think that's what, I think you and I should really focus on putting some time in on the Kansas stuff. And
we talked about, I think that's a March shed hunt trip.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, I think 2-3 days, to try to cover what we can. I mean, that's really what it comes back to. Dude, the time during the season. I mean, yeah, you can hunt and scout as you go. Like there's definitely, and that'll happen. But the more you can have covered, like in the off season, and know what's where. I mean, I just think that that's such a huge piece to any information that you do pick up when October, November rolls around. You're going to understand the context of it because of what you saw right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. I mean, that is when you kind of talk about that macro level, I think the things that I look at is I'm pretty stoked here. I would say sometime in January to get the thermal drone out and start surveying some properties just in and around my area and stuff. Like just, how many deer are actually out there? Like that's a big question I still even have on all my properties. It's like I'm seeing deer on camera. In fact, it wasn't until like my dad was out with me in Ohio. I'm like, man, I think I got a bunch of deer on here, like almost too many. But then I'm like, I see 4 deer, like 4 does and a couple fawns on this camera. And then I see 4 does and a couple fawns on that camera. And I'm like, same deer, different deer. And then he's like, well, I saw a line of 7 does and fawns and a line of 8 does and fawns. I'm like, okay, too many deer. Like, but cameras, unless you're like watching a big field, like it's hard to understand, how many deer are really out there, right? We even talked about that with our Illinois piece. I'm like, it's not like I'm watching a field. We did get that shot the other day in the cut corn, and it's like there's a bunch of deer back there. But it's not like there's 30 does and fawns out there right now. Like you don't see that. So I'm kind of anxious to like just put the drone up and be like, how many deer are on this property? How many deer are on surrounding properties? Like, is there a field, a half mile away, like these big Brassica fields in Illinois that have 180 deer in it? I don't know, maybe, or 50 deer in it. I don't know, maybe. So that'll be kind of a cool thing to play around with. And also like during the daytime when it's cold, put that up and where are these deer bedding, right? Mark those bedding areas, then walk in there, whether it's in February or March, right? Like if you put that up in January and you mark these spots on cold days where they're at, walk in there in February or March, what's it look like? Is it thick? Like, how do you replicate what you're seeing? Because this is what they preferred. Clearly, you saw them in here. How do you replicate that? So, people give drones a bad knock on a lot of things, but like there are, I think, really good benefits from them in that case of use them and then get in there and see what that actually looks like.
Have you put that thing up at all?
Once.
And it's got a thermal thing on it? Like,
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's Yoder's drone, the whatever T30, Matrix 30.
Yeah, that'll be interesting for sure. I mean,
I don't know how to use it real well.
Next to collar and those things, I mean, I guess that's your next best.
Yeah, I don't know how to use it real well. I got Mike had a class like thing for whatever $100 or something, $200, so I bought it to like go through and like learn how to like use all the functions, because like those guys are like, they go through, there's the deer, let me zoom in, zoom, mark it, like it's all on the map and stuff. I'm like, how the fuck did you just do that?
Does it seem a lot more complicated than just the basic, like your DJI?
Mainly from, there's different variations of the thermal to be able to use. There's multiple cameras. There's a camera in the back that's not thermal and a camera in the front that is thermal. There's a third-party light that has to be triggered. That's how you actually see them at night. And then there's a mapping function to be able to map it, so you could go in, like when they find a deer, they drop a pin and like, here's the coordinates, go get it. I don't know how to do any of that stuff yet.
Gotcha.
I'm sure I'll figure it out, but yeah, I mean, because I want to be able to fly that. Because think about it, like if you put it up at night, like you're looking at this thing, like you don't know what's your property line and not, like you're just flying it and like you find the deer and you drop a pin type of thing. So yeah, I mean, and then getting that data to then put on whatever Spartan Forge or whatever, so that I can then say, okay, here's all the pins I dropped and here's everything that I need to do. So yeah, that's the big part that I'm not sure how to use, but I'm excited to, like even in Illinois, like obviously all the crops are gone, like flying these river drainages and stuff. Like how many deer are in there?
I think you're more right than I was on our Illinois piece as far as the number of deer that are there. I don't think it's a lot.
No.
I think there's, right now, it's been interesting to see how few deer have flocked to those grain fields.
I bet there's under 40 deer on that farm.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, like 30 to 40.
I would agree. At any given time.
Which is kind of weird because like there's not a lot of habitat around there to support big deer numbers.
What do you mean?
Like it's not like, oh, well, there's 100 deer in this block over here.
Yeah. No, I think that's what it is. Like just in the area. I think there's just a lot of deer get shot in the area. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Lone Wolf Custom Gear.
Man, Jared, we are tree stand fanatics, and I think the one thing that we have learned over all these years is to kill big bucks, we got to be mobile. We've been hunting out of lone wolves for many years, the original lone wolf, and then obviously with the custom gear stuff, we're using the 0.5 and the 0.75. Yeah. And the one thing that we talked about is like, what if there were no cables? Here we are.
I really just don't know how you can beat it, frankly. But, a lot of that came, too, from a relationship that we've built with the DeQuistos. We've had both Cody and Andre on the podcast a few times. The passion for hunting, the outlook on the sport and stuff, I think is eye to eye with how we look at it. Everything that has gone into building this brand and to building these tree stands is something that we want to be a part of.
This is the 40th anniversary of these guys creating tree stands that have been critical to how we hunt whitetail deer today. If you look over the past, you'll see Andre's designs being implemented across so many stands over the years. Such a cool thing, but really has changed the way that we all hunt whitetail deer from above now.
Right now, you can use code HUNTR, HUNTR, to get 7% off anything on the entire website. Be the lone wolf.
And tie a lot of this into, just because he gave us such a great layout of it, is like Mississippi, like they're begging people to just kill deer, multiple bucks, multiple does. And it's like the herd is at an all-time high.
I think it's a culture thing.
Yeah, and I mean, guys are killing deer down there. I forget what he said, like 300 and some thousand deer got killed out of there, which is as many as Illinois. And it's like, how is it Illinois, with as good a habitat as it has, as good as soils, how is that herd not bouncing back? Right? Like it just... Yeah. You talk to all the Illinois guys, they're like, yeah, deer, there's like hardly any deer like there used to be. I mean, hell, even Skip and Chris were just talking about don't kill does this gun season in Iowa and some of these places. There's no deer left.
I mean, I think those most recent comments were EHD related for the most part, but I don't know. I mean, we talked about it with Psycho and like the tinfoil, observation is that it does seem to be happening more in agricultural areas, where herds just don't seem to be bouncing back as much as they should.
Which seems weird because here's a state like Mississippi and that they're killing deer and there's more deer than there's ever been.
Yeah, I wonder. Well, because Ohio's the same way. And like I would say we're in an agricultural area, but it's not like that's not the primary, you know what I mean? I don't think we have like, I don't know. It's not Illinois, that's for sure.
Is this right? Is this accurate? It says, this is 23-24, so not this year, last year. It says last year in Illinois, there was a total of 160,313 deer harvested. That's it?
Really?
160,000?
It doesn't seem right.
That's what it says.
That's half of what they killed in Mississippi.
Half. That's less than a half of what we kill in Ohio.
Interesting.
Kill 400 and some thousand in Ohio, I think.
Huh.
160,000 total deer in Illinois. That's low. That's like nothing.
Weird.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, that's what it says. Whereas on the other side, Mississippi killed 275,000.
Wow. I don't know. Well, man, I just don't know Mississippi that well. Like maybe it's just a
Okay, well put it into where you do know is Ohio. Ohio in 23 and 24 killed 215,000 deer.
Okay.
Versus Illinois killing 160,000.
That makes more sense. Boy, they do kill a lot of deer in Mississippi.
And they're at all-time highs?
Yeah, that's interesting.
That wild?
Huh.
Interesting when you start to get into that. Like, I guess, like, that's where, you know, and then obviously, like, the outlier to that is, like, a Pennsylvania killed 430.
Mm-hmm.
We kill some deer in this state.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's what it's like when you start to think about some of these states, which is why we're trying to get more and more state biologists on. So I'll give you kind of precursor here. At some point in the near future, Wisconsin's deer biologist is going to be on here working through a time frame. We've got Pennsylvania Game Commission deer biologist and CWD person coming on probably in the spring.
Maybe Michigan.
Yep, Michigan's. We're working on Illinois. Haven't heard from you yet, in case you got my email. So, you know, we're cutting through several of these states to try to get input, but stay on Illinois for a second. Like 160,000 deer, like that's not a lot. And why? Like it's got to be disease. It's got to be over harvest. Like the herd's just not there.
I don't know.
I mean, if I'm an Illinois guy, which I guess I am because we own a farm there, like I'm a bit concerned with that number as compared to some of these other states.
Well, not that you want it to be higher, but you're just saying it seems low in comparison to the number of deer that we're seeing.
Correct.
Like the perception of the density. Yeah.
Well, and even just the history of talking to other people who have hunted Illinois a lot longer than us who are like, dude, the amount of deer that we have now is nothing.
Yeah, I assume there used to be way more deer, and I assume they also used to kill way more deer. So yeah, it was both, I assume.
Yeah. So I mean, those are the things that I kind of want to have discussions about with some of these people. You know, from a deer biologist standpoint, is like, you know, should we be concerned about that? I mean, Lucas is a great one up in North Dakota. It's like clearly there's like less deer than there's ever been. Why? Like, how do we? You know, how do we get past that?
Yeah, I don't know.
So, yeah, I mean, that's the stuff that I think it'll be interesting to kind of, you know, as continued discussions happen, what do those look like? Here we go. So Illinois' got one here. This is kind of a harvest reports as they go. So let's go back, 10 years? So 2013 and 14. They killed 148,000. So 10 years ago, they killed less deer. How's that work? Seems odd, right?
It does.
I don't know. If I go back 20 years, 2003, 2004. 168,000.
More.
8,000 more. Not that many.
I don't know.
So that's what I'm saying. So you're talking about from 20 years ago, when I would say if you talk to most Illinois guys,
assuming the numbers are accurate.
Yeah, they'll say, yeah, there were way more deer 20 years ago in Illinois.
Yeah.
We killed 8,000 more than we killed last year in Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
Seems fishy to me. Seems fishy.
I just don't know about the numbers. I mean, the more.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's like, and then what was the other one? 148. So you're telling me that like over the last 20 years, we've been within 10 or 12,000 deer killed every year.
Yeah, that was the more shocking statistic. Who told us that?
My buddy Ed.
Kyle?
Kyle did too. Yeah.
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 It was Kyle. They're like, yeah, it
Harmon.
hasn't varied more than like 10,000 in a given year or something, which is super weird.
It's like it's not mathematically possible.
Huh. So, yeah, I don't know.
So those are the things, like, and especially when, observationally, you're like, there's way less deer than there were 10 years ago or 20 years ago.
That does seem to be the consensus for sure.
How are we still killing as many, if not more? That makes sense.
I don't know.
And if we are, should we? Should we be killing as many or more?
I think that's more the question. I mean, that's the appeal you hear from guys who say that there's way less deer. We should hold off on shooting some of the does, that is what I'm saying is interesting compared to like Ohio, or it sounds like in Mississippi is like we
guns blazing.
We could stand to keep knocking them back.
And again, I don't know if many people like Illinois should be way better deer habitat than those two states.
I mean, that's been in serious decline for sure because it is big farm country. They're taking out brush rows and fence rows and habitat, just edge. You see that a lot. Like that is.
Oh yeah.
That actively is happening. As
fence rows are going down. And, Yep. More tillable. Yeah. More money. Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird, but that's where like as you kind of sit at this time, like I said, whatever, it's the 19th of December, like you're reflecting on the season. It's a perfect time to reflect back on the season of like what's happened, what's ahead, what do I need to do, how do I improve things, am I happy with where things were? But I'm sure there's plenty of like red flags as well coming up through the season of like, boy, didn't see like what we talked about. It's like, why did none of those deer show up on the satellite Ohio farm that you usually have? Seems weird. Like, how did our entire Illinois buck crop basically just completely different deer, except for like one or two of them? It's like, well, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, some will never be answered. The Ohio satellite thing. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe something will come up eventually. Be like, oh, hey, there was actually EHD. A bunch of those guys turns out, found deer dead that year and stuff. And then in Illinois, I think it just takes time. You know what I mean? As more time passes, like who knows? You know what I mean? Some of these deer that we haven't seen that we feel could be dead or whatever, maybe they show back up and we're like, it's interesting. And
just skip the year.
And then you just try to make correlations. Yeah, crop rotations is the most,
especially in that big ag country.
It makes the most sense. But we also made a lot of changes to that farm this year. So you'd think they would all have a positive impact, but again, I think time will tell.
Yeah, it's an interesting time because it is, we had the podcast with Rising not long ago. I mean, it was a weird year for deer, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I would have changed anything that as far as my approach to the season.
That's a good place. Go ahead, take it. Go ahead.
Well, the only thing that like I don't, it's like I don't wish to change the past because it is what it is now. So it's like you just take what it is and keep moving forward. But I would have liked to kill that GR8 buck early in Ohio. And
do you think you gave enough effort to it?
I mean,
and I don't say that in like a bad way.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, did you?
No,
because you were on the
we talked about
on the tracks buck for a while,
right? We talked about this early on because I was like, I don't ever give them that much effort because I'm like,
It'll either happen or
it won't. And I'm like, until there's one that like really gets my goat, and I'm like,
one that consumes
he needs, and he's killable, because there have been deer that they aren't killable. Like they leave, they're gone. They're not there.
I mean, you had 180-inch deer this summer. Which that deer would have taken the entire. I mean, hell, at one point we were like, do you even leave Ohio for Iowa because you've got a 180 here?
Yeah.
And
so there's situations like that
he's gone.
Come and go. Yeah, and that deer's probably alive. I mean,
he does it every year, it seems like.
Right, I know. And so I don't know what. There's two things you can do there. You can, and I've tried them both. You can bait the crap out of it and hope that he stays.
He's still left.
He hasn't. Or you can go and try to find him. And I've gone and gotten permission elsewhere, and I haven't turned him up.
Yeah, I mean that might be one of those deer that is going 4 miles or 5 miles. I don't know.
Could be. I mean, there's plenty of timber blocks that they can make their way to, and who knows? Maybe he got shot this year, but
you mean this one?
I'd love to see a picture of him. Yeah. If he got killed, but chances are he'll be there next summer. He could be a 200-inch deer.
Very much so. That deer will be a monster.
If that's the case, I mean, he's getting to that point where I'm like, okay, now I probably need to go knock on every door. And I mean, not that a 180 isn't, but like It weighted against other options. We had Iowa this year and stuff.
200 class deer is a once in a lifetime deer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But maybe that's what's so cool. That is one of the coolest things about deer season is like not just the season, but like a career is like things like that will come up, and like you may be building history today that you don't know will manifest. Like it could come out of nowhere, and you're like, here's this freaking deer. He's 200 inches. Like
he blew up.
I got access over the summer, and. Yeah, I will probably do some more of that this summer.
I think more and more of these deer, especially as I think, if anything, this year we've probably come better on realization of age than we have in years past.
Yeah,
I mean, I still don't know if we're accurate on it.
Yeah, I'd always hem and haw about these 2 and 3 year olds. Those are the tough ones. Are they 2 or are they 3?
A couple of 3 and 4s too.
Usually I know them by then, though.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I think I know.
Yeah, the 2 and 3s when you're trying to figure them out. Absolutely. That's where the mistakes happen.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's in, maybe we're being ultra conservative now. I think even as some of the deer I'm looking at, I'm aging a year younger than I originally thought.
Yeah, if you have the luxury, if you
I don't know if it's a luxury. That's where I'm at. And, like, they may die next year, and I'm like, well, sucks he was 4, and it's like, no, that deer was 5. I don't know.
I mean, that's a year-to-year thing, and even, it could change on a dime. You know what I mean? It's like while out of one side of my mouth, I'll be like, I'm not real interested in shooting 4-year-olds. I would prefer to see them. It's not that I don't want to shoot them. It's I would prefer to see them reach
full maturity.
In the same breath, like that temptation buck next year, who knows? This is, we get into the group dynamic it's just really challenging, and there's no right answer. It's like when there's multiple guys that are hunting a property, and there's, you're all trying to get along and do it effectively together without running them out of there type of thing. It's like, you end up yielding and trying to go elsewhere where, you're not going to step on toes. So who knows? I mean, there it seems like there will be a fair amount of opportunity there next year, but also there are some parts of that farm that are seeming more and more like a lost cause to me.
Yeah, I mean, you said you have some parts that are just like vacant.
So it is what it is. It's like I can mope about it, and I can try to keep turning it into something it probably won't ever be, or we can start strategizing to sell it and turn it, roll it into something better. Not the whole farm. I'm just saying,
some of it,
bits and pieces. It's like, man, what's the point of just sitting on stuff? Yeah. And the more, like, I don't think I'll ever get to a point where there are guys who just look at farms like it's just another one, you know what I mean? Type of a thing. Like, I don't think we'll ever get to that point. We just won't do the quantity of it, but I am getting more comfortable with, if one far extreme is like, that's the farm. You don't ever you never sell the farm. You never, not that I'm ready to sell a farm, but I'm more in the middle now where I'm like, hey, like, yeah, we're at where we're at, and we've built something here, but these guys aren't working. You know what I mean? This is not happening. So we need to figure out how to let's like reinvest and find a way to like grow in the right direction so that we can have a better future with it. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Better Backstrap.
Well, one thing that's undeniable, man, is you and I both like to eat. And so we're going to be partnering with the Better Backstrap this year to have the best seasonings possible for our meat this summer.
Yeah. Well, dude, when it comes to venison, it's like you've heard me talk about before. It's like, what does the preparation for all this look like and stuff? And it's like, I really want to make a point of eating more venison moving forward. And some of the Better Backstrap mixtures have made it super easy.
Yeah. And so we've got kind of 3 core mixtures. You've got your original Better Backstrap, which is for that grilling of your backstrap or tenderloins or anything like that. You've got your classic taco mix.
Can't go wrong with tacos.
Can't go wrong with that. And then you've got your standard SPG in the orange can.
Well, SPG and down the hatch.
There you go. So right now, if you go to betterbackstrap.com, you can use the code HUNTR15 to get 15% off any of your orders on the seasonings, and there'll probably be more coming out here throughout the year.
Get yourself a Better Backstrap.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. It's like there's plenty. I talked to somebody the other day because they were like, well, you think you'll ever sell your Ohio farm? I was like, yeah, I for sure will. Whether that's to buy a bigger farm wherever I end up when I retire, or because somebody gives me a better opportunity at a bigger farm in Ohio, yeah, I will. And, there's plenty of guys that would be like, they'd love to go out and have a farm that they could hunt, 3 and 4 year old 130 to 180 inch deer every year. Like, cool. That's great. But there's always a way of just the way that our mind works. It's just like hunting or just in business and life. It's like, I want better and more. And I don't want it to just be handed. I want to work to grow it. Right. Mm-hmm. So even in the case on your farm, it's like, if you think about all the work that you've put into it, there's a ceiling on that farm that's uncontrollable. It's out of your control. Mm-hmm. Even if you were like, hey, I'm not going to hunt this farm for 3 years, doesn't matter. There's a ceiling because those deer leave your property and they go and get killed. And it's just how it is. So you have to keep looking for properties that have higher ceilings, right? That's the hardest part because
or you're happy with what you have. You know what I mean? There's that too, and there is a time and a place. There is a time and a place for that.
Yeah, but most guys are not you're just not wired. I'm not saying don't be satisfied with what you have. But you're always thinking of how to make something better.
Yeah,
of course. If your head keeps hitting off of the ceiling year after year, eventually you either knock yourself out or you get out of that room.
Yeah.
So it's just, that's all it is. It's like, if somebody said right now, hey, man, here's a property in Columbus, right? 150 acres in Columbus. You can kill 200-inch deer every year. Sell it to you for $10 million. I don't have $10 million.
Right.
That's not... The ceiling is much higher than
I know
both
people that do.
I know, right? Let me call somebody. Let me make a phone call. But you and I, as much as it's boy, that's the ceiling we want to beat, we can't afford that, right? There's some sort of step in between those. Right. So, I mean, that's what you have to figure out is
it's a balance of life too. Nor would I do that.
No.
I mean, if I had a disposable $10 million or I felt like it was a really smart investment and I could pull the right people together, maybe. But I'm not going to put that in front of requests that my wife has from me, for instance, or where my family farm is, where my parents have built their house type of a thing. There's things that supersede deer hunting, frankly.
I'll tell you what I would do, though, is...
we'd find a way. I mean, if you...
Well, yeah. But, if... We always talk about where these prices are going. Case in point, farm north of us in Illinois is on the market for $8,500 an acre. Got a bunch of tillable, but it's $8,500 an acre, much higher than you and I paid for our farm. I bought my farm for significantly under $3,000 an acre in central Ohio, and the property values in that area have just exploded. If somebody would say, this would be like a 1031 situation. If I sold my farm for $800,000 in southern Ohio, and somebody said, hey, this farm, I don't care if it's a mile away. This farm is 100 acres, but you'll have 170s to 190s every year on this farm. I'd pay $8,000 an acre for that farm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'd flip it right in. Even though it's smaller and it's way above market value. If I'm in the game every year for what I'm trying to do, I'd pay it.
Yeah, no brainer. I mean, it's like we're not buying... You are and you aren't. I mean, it's not you're not buying land to buy land. You're buying land because of what could be there or what is there. Mm-hmm. It's like buying a gold mine. It's like if somebody tells you there's giant nuggets in that mine, you're going to pay more for it than you would one that just
no, I'm not going to
nobody
pay
knows or whatever.
$5 million because I don't have $5 million, and there's an absurdity there that doesn't make sense. But, it's the same question when people either say, well, I'll just wait for land to come down. It's not going to. Or they say, well, nobody would pay that. Like, we're going to get to the point where people will pay it.
I do think that it could.
You think what?
I think land could come down temporarily. It has in the past. 2008 was the last
major recession type stuff.
Major recession, which hey, could happen any time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm not like the maybe in a place to give land investment advice. Like I'm in my first couple here, but it seems like the smart play to ensure that you can cash flow those in the event that you can't sell them. Mm-hmm. Like it seems like a bad position to be in where you're like, hey, I would be fine, but I'd have to sell this because there could come a time where nobody wants to buy it.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to be in a place where regardless, your cash flow.
You got to be able to make
or
the
you paid
payments
it
on
already. Yeah,
right.
It's already paid for.
Yeah, if you own it, it's fine.
Property taxes are a different ballgame, though.
Yeah, it is.
They're getting out of control.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of people are leaving Illinois. Property taxes are off the chain there right now.
Off the chain.
Mm-hmm. I like that. So what the kids are saying
off
nowadays?
The charts, I think is Well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and dude, it doesn't seem like you go wrong. I mean, as long financially, you have to have the basis to be able to cash flow these. There's three parts of it when you include taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe more, but like
down payment.
You got to be able to make a down payment.
That's the hardest.
Here's your lump sum
people.
of cash. If you're going to buy, a $500,000 farm, you got to have
$100,000.
$100,000. You got to have $100,000 cash.
Here you go.
Here you go. Whether it's you or you and people, and then you got to make the payments,
which is on a $400,000 mortgage. At this point, land is north of 7% for 20 years. So you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of a $2,500 to $2,700 a month payment.
Yep.
Mortgage payment.
Yep. So more than a home mortgage in a lot of cases. You know what I mean?
So you need damn near $35,000 a year just to pay the mortgage.
There you go. And
after dropping $100,000.
That's right. And then taxes are the third element I would throw in there.
Yep.
On top of any improvements.
Yeah. And if you have a structure, you need insurance. Like, there's a lot of stuff in there. Yeah. It adds up quick.
Yeah. And if you can, if it can return cash for you, like
huge
in a CRP payment or in a cash rent or in timber,
oil and gas,
run down a list, all these things here. That's great. That helps that offsets the payment more than likely.
Huge.
Or in a timber harvest, the immediate investment down payment.
Yeah, that's a huge piece of it.
Oh.
Yeah, it's really tough to buy just a recreational piece of ground unless you get it for under market value.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the prices are climbing at a rate that like basically anything you buy is like, next year it's going to be, you will have bought it under market value for next year.
And that's the tough part, man. Because like right now, even if you and I look at a new piece, it's like we could leverage some equity in the Illinois farm, which is great because prices have gone up, but interest rates are not coming down. We're gonna be hovering. Land interest rates are gonna be 6.7 to 7.2, probably all of 2025. That would be my guess.
Think so?
At this point, yeah, it seems like they're just not going to come down as fast as we all wanted them.
Yep.
So,
and that's fine. I mean, again, it is what it is. Like if you can cash flow the payments, you buy it at that price, and
it just sucks you're paying interest that you're not getting any credit for.
It does, and the demand is driven by that interest, right? In a lot of ways, So you're basically just outpacing that. Like eventually, the interest rate will come down to five something,
and you can refinance,
and the demand at that point will continue to drive the price up. So you will have bought it for under market value at that point.
That's the thing. I mean, I think any savvy land person will say, if it's the right piece, don't just buy a piece to buy a piece. But if it's the right piece, suck it up, take the hit on the interest rate, know that within the next 3 to 5 years, you'll be able to refi at a significantly lower rate, which will lower your payments dramatically.
Yeah. The other side of things is like it is definitely not the most cost-effective way to kill big deer consistently.
No, it's not. We've had a great conversation with Bobby Kendall about this, I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah, with a bunch of guys. I mean, it's like when you do the math, which we just kind of did, and see what it costs to buy a farm, it's way cheaper to lease stuff.
To lease them.
You know, but from an investment standpoint, that's the trade-off is like at the end of all of this, right? Whenever we're 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, I want to be able to like look in my asset portfolio and be like, okay, I own
a bunch of land,
a couple $1 million worth of land here.
A lot.
Versus, you know, hey, I spent a few $100,000 on leases.
And I got expenses written off on my taxes.
And I wrote off some taxes over the years. I think that, you know, I think the former is what I want. And Winky said it best too. I think you really have to be passionate about that land ownership process. And we're definitely connected to that. It's not just about killing big bucks. It's like,
well, that's the thing is like, we love, look at what we just talked about, looking at the land. Where do I need to improve? All of that stuff that we're going to do in the off season, that is our hobby. Like that, it's hard for people to understand, but like, you know, it's not just like, oh, well, these guys are going to shed hunt it. It's like, we're going to plant food plots. We're talking about warm season grasses. We're going to be cutting timber. Like all of that stuff that I don't have any other hobbies really. Like that's my hobby in the off season. And so with a lease, I can't do 90% of that.
Right. So
maybe it's more cost effective and maybe it's better for finding big bucks to hunt them, but I enjoy the other stuff. That I enjoy the land ownership stuff of it, part of it.
Or do both.
Yeah.
Do both.
If you have the money.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Feel like, you know, we're going to lease some stuff in Kansas more than likely this year. I think if the right piece came up, we would buy, potentially.
Yeah, maybe.
If I pulled your thumb hard enough.
Yeah. The right piece, right price, maybe.
But, you know, so there's an instance of doing, but you just have to find a way to, you know, make it make sense, you know? So I don't know, dude, you got to work hard. Like friggin' it's fun. We're kind of at this tax time of the year too, to like look back at, you know, and that's the beauty of like, you know, we're just, again, like we've been focusing so hard on work and hunt. And now, you know, we're kind of picking our head up and I'm like, hey, these investments I made did pretty good. Like, hey, that farm we bought, ended up we bought it under market value.
Yeah.
You know, hey, I spent a lot of time on this. It didn't really turn anything, but you know, so either let's ditch it or, you know, keep going. You know, now's the time to reassess. I would say between us, you know, I mean, I think this past year ended up maybe even better than I thought. You know, in a lot of aspects, you know what I mean? So I would say real estate, like our business was,
we had about a 4-week period that it was like, whoa, we just made a bunch. Well, we're about to make a bunch of money. Yeah. It's got to close still.
Yep. Well, and it took a long time of not making no return,
but paying into the red.
That's been a cool lesson for me. I think just in building businesses is like it, you know, it's like, how long are you willing to see nothing, you know, in order for like a long-term, you know, that is business ownership as opposed,
we've had that conversation
as opposed to a salary.
With us and our third business partner of like, we were not a lot, but it's like, boy, we've got a significant investment here with no return.
None.
And at one point we had a meeting in September, maybe I was like, guys, we have to be prepared to literally make zero revenue in 2024. And it was like, that's a tough thing to stomach, you know, when you're in a business like that. And it's
not just make no money. It's, hey, we've
also invested a bunch into it. Yeah. So yeah, we're all going to walk out of 2024 dramatically in the red. And then for 4 weeks, it was like, boom, 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 boom. Here's a bunch of deals that went in. We've closed several of them at this point. And it was like, wow, I think I wrote you guys, not like, we're going to be a little over break even in 24, which is a huge gain compared to what we thought. And we're going to kick off 25 like a rocket ship.
Yeah, trending significantly in the right direction. So I mean, that's just one of, you know, all the irons we have in the fire, that it's like it's good to see that starting to pay off. It's like, okay,
a lot of work and money involved in it too to get it there.
A ton, you know, and that's the same with everything. I mean, even like, so the podcast, we're year 4, you know, and it's been really cool to see it progress and its role in, I mean, frankly, I wouldn't have killed that Iowa deer this year had we not. I mean, we would have drawn Iowa tags.
Yeah, but
maybe
both of our Iowa contacts were from
neither
podcasts.
of those hunts would have happened the way that they hunted, and so yeah, it's a cool time for reflection. And dude, Was it? Yeah, man, was it last year? We bought that farm last September.
Yep, September of 23.
So last year, this time, this conversation was very different.
Mm-hmm.
We were like, we're thinking about buying a piece of farm together, piece of land together.
2 years ago would have been.
2 years ago?
Yeah, because we already bought it at this point. We hunted it. We killed deer on it last year at this point.
That's right. Right. Well, so a year and a half.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a year and a half.
Year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the discussion last year was like, cool, we bought this farm. We sat 6 times. We killed 3 mature bucks on it.
That's right.
It was awesome. We think like we got a really good deal on it now, kind of seeing what's happening in the neighborhood. I don't know if we announced it yet. We're leaving Whitetail Properties.
Yeah.
And we're going to go on our own for real estate with Keller Williams.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there was a lot of optimism and question of like, I think we both would, and just for anybody looking to like, we talk about these properties, like you need side hustle cash to have these properties really work out. Like if you have a job, unless it's a freaking good one, it's tough. Mm-hmm. You need side hustle cash to make these things happen. And I think both of us would be lying if we didn't say we went at this time last year when we were knowing that we were going to leave Whitetail or we had left Whitetail, we were going into Keller Williams. If we thought, hey, we're not going to make any money really until October or November, we would be like, yeah, right. I mean, it's not going to take that long to get this thing going.
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah. Yeah.
It did. And took more cash to get it going than I think we thought as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, dude, that's where, and I don't know, I guess we're living this right now, but it's like to be a successful business owner, or I mean, an entrepreneur of any sorts, I mean, you have to have multiple things going. Mm-hmm. Like chances are, and it's the same with like, it's the same with the properties. Like, I mean, you have to have success. You have to get somewhere with one of them and be like, okay, cool. This one can now support me to like have enough time or financial resources to roll into like this other thing that, here's an opportunity on this. Mm-hmm. And then, eventually you probably have to like trim some back. And so that's where
because you're only one guy or girl.
Well, that's where you and I struggle. Yeah. You either delegate or you trim back or, and it's happening as it goes. But
yeah. HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Spartan Forge.
Dude, maps, mapping, right? Yeah. It all starts with a map, a visualization of a new property, into the fine tuning of different food plots, different habitat projects, where those are going to go, all the way to sharing pins and looking kind of like beyond the layers with something like LiDAR, which is exclusive to Spartan Forge as of now.
Yeah, and whether we're looking at it from a management side to put in food plots or switchgrass, or if we're taking a run and gun public approach on Kansas, it all starts with a map. It starts with a strategy there. You and I are going to have our own Blue Force team, which will allow us to run our own devices, but be able to see what you're adding or what I'm adding to that single map, which is really going to be critical moving forward this hunting season.
That's right. So if you're looking for a mapping software to try out this year, or maybe you're just like not getting what you need out of the one you're using currently, Bill's offered us a promo code of HUNTR20, HUNTR20, that you guys can use to get your own subscription up and rolling. Check out Spartan Forge, download the app, use that promo code, and we'll be using that this year.
Make sure you check out Spartan Forge. There's a little bit of season here for us left to go. We'll enjoy it. You got Doe Fest coming up. Like I'll have some hunts with the kids and my dad still. 2 things. I'm ready for off-season work. I'm thinking 25 already in my head, like what I want to do, where I want to make improvements. And then we're about to get into work mode. So per all the discussion we just talked about with, making money and buying farm, like we're about to turn into the work mode guys, which, heads kind of go down here for about 7 or 8 months, pretty hardcore. And we don't come up for air very often. So I guess part of that, we talk about podcasts. So we got a couple more weeks of this, but basically December 31st, we'll be back on normal podcast schedule. Mm-hmm. So you guys will get Tuesdays at 6 p.m. There'll be no Thursday podcast. Those will go back into the bank until September, maybe. We come back out with doubles. Mm-hmm. We will still try to do like an every other week Friday field video, just kind of depending on shed season and scouting and food plots. And like, obviously we want to keep that up now that we've got that in a rhythm. And then
Hunt Companion
will change over to I Bought a Farm. So I think we talked about this in the last Hunt
I like
Companion
that.
a little bit.
That's a good transition.
Yeah, so we've done 15 or 16 full length Ibotta Farms.
Farm Companion.
Farm Companion. Farmer's Companion. So we basically were like, man, we like doing those because it's a great time for us to catch up on like what we're doing on the farm or thinking about new properties. Like it's a good time to have that conversation. We don't do it enough. We're not consistent with it. So every Sunday we're going to do I Bought a Farm, which will be a 20 to 30 minute replacement for Hunt Companion. Hunt Companion will come back in September probably. And but we'll do that I Bought a Farm here in the off season, and that will be what we talk about what we're doing on our farm, if we're thinking about buying. Maybe we'll do some questions and stuff if people have some questions about investing in land and thinking about buying stuff. We get a pile of those anyways. But yeah, that'll kind of be our I Bought a Farm segment that we'll still do on Sunday evenings. That'll come out. So yeah, trying to look at it half glass full with the holidays coming up, as season's going to wind down and we're going to walk into the off season here pretty quickly and yeah, keep kind of hammer down and next chapter.
Land ownership is just like an endless supply of like joy. Like there's so many things you can do. It's like you can just it gives as much back to you as you can put into it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of fun. I mean, I'm
excited for shed season, even though we're not even through this season.
I can't wait to walk our farm, dude, in Illinois. We've never done it. We walked it the very first time we saw it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's parts of it we've never been back on. So I'm really excited to do that.
I know. Like that big block of timber, I think we've been in one time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it'll be interesting. So we're excited. We've got a couple of cool guests coming up. Like I said, we're going to really ping on to the state biologist here in the upcoming future. Just some of the big states that we know a lot of you guys listening here have a lot of questions about. So we're going to start digging in and forming some relationships there. And we'll probably start to see you guys at some shows here in the near future.
I'd love to get back to the Iowa Deer Classic.
I think the plan, maybe we swing through there on the way to Iowa shed hunting.
Yeah. Is that March?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that'd be great. And then I'd also love to do, to Kansas.
Kansas shed hunting, sorry.
And then I'd love to do that Ohio.
Ohio Deer and Turkey.
Is it the Deer Classic? Is it the Jurassic Classic?
Oh, Jurassic Classic.
And that's in the summertime.
I think.
That's the one to go to in Ohio, right?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few that we might just show up at and just be part of.
Yeah.
Be fun. And I think that's it. So we'll have one more podcast here before Christmas. So not Merry Christmas yet.
Although it is merry.
It is merry.
'Tis the season to be merry.
'Tis the season.
That's my name.
That's my name.
Did you watch that yet?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. National Lampoons? Yeah.
We watched The Grinch.
How about that, Ross?
Can't see the line.
Yeah. It's great.
How about The Grinch?
Yeah, I watched the newer cartoony one.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Jim Carrey was in that costume for 92 days. I watched a little thing on it. Every day he went in and did that costume.
He was great in that movie.
Amazing. It's one of the best character to things like that that's probably ever been done.
Yeah, really good. No, those are go-to. Watched Home Alone last night.
Did you?
Yeah. Classic.
Yeah, we haven't made it there yet.
What else I got on the list? I like Polar Express.
Get out.
What?
No,
Tom Hanks?
Not for me, dude.
What?
I'm not a yeah. That's a weird movie.
Yeah.
Polar Express?
Yeah, I was a big fan of the book.
You know what we did watch the other night is James and the Giant Peach.
Really?
Yeah, that's a classic.
Wow. I haven't watched that in forever. Speaking of movies, have you seen this new Megan Fox movie?
No. Subservient or whatever?
Yeah, where she's like an AI sex robot or something?
No. Have you seen it?
No, Emily just showed me a clip, and it was like this guy basically regretting that he had sex with his AI robot maid. I was like, what? Fuck.
Yeah, I've seen.
Where the hell did this come from?
Yeah, I've seen the trailer.
She looks pretty freaky as an AI robot.
Mm.
Yeah, wild.
Yeah.
Maybe not for Christmas.
The movie game's been kind of hit or miss. It really is sad, dude. You go back and watch some of those.
Ugh.
They just don't make good movies anymore. That time has passed. Like they still make things that you're like, okay, I'll watch this. But
yeah, I mean, I've had a few series that I've gotten into recently.
Which ones?
Sticky on Amazon Prime. Have you watched that one? It's a good one.
Okay.
It's short, like 35-minute episodes. I think there's 6 of them, but it's like the Great Canadian Maple Syrup Heist. You'd like it. It's kind of like, it's not slapstick funny.
Spunky.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah, you like it.
How about Love at First Sight?
No.
You don't get into that?
No.
It's all or nothing.
No, I'm not into those
Margin
ones.
and I watch that.
Yeah, I can't watch that stuff. Is that a reality show?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, I can't. I don't do any reality shows, I don't think. No, I'm pretty.
That's what you think. They're pretty.
Yeah, I haven't had any
addictive.
other really good ones here recently. I mean, I've watched some series, but they, so. There's a couple of movies. There's a new Ben Stiller Christmas movie. Did you watch it?
Dumb.
Damn it.
I know.
That sucks.
Real bummer.
I guess I'm not gonna watch it.
No.
Really?
Yep.
Will Ferrell's in a new one coming up too. I don't think it's a Christmas movie, but it's something coming up.
I saw a glimpse of that this morning.
With him and Reese Witherspoon,
Yeah.
maybe?
Yeah, I haven't looked into it yet. But
You know what I did watch? Daddy's Home 2 the other night. That was good.
Yeah.
Him and Wahlberg.
Mel Gibson.
And Mel Gibson. Anything
He's
with
a stud.
Did anything with Mel
We
Gibson.
watched The Patriot again
the
the other night. Yeah,
Such
it
a
never
good-
gets old.
Oh my god. Yeah, dude. I watched Braveheart like 2 weeks ago. Great movie.
He was the best.
Dude, The Patriot is one. I watch it a pile of times. Wrestling movie, Vision Quest. You know Vision Quest? 80s?
Yeah.
Lunatic Fringe.
Heard it.
Song.
Doesn't Vision Quest? Was there a Will Ferrell rollerblading movie that
Yeah,
was
that was it.
kind of tank?
It was
That was Vision Quest. No, he was like a.
It wasn't Vision Quest. It was
He sings.
Yeah,
It's karaoke.
the Netherlands thing. Yeah.
That was Vision Quest.
Was it?
I thought
No, the original Vision Quest was wrestling movie.
Oh, okay.
Watched it the other day. It was good.
Did you see The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke?
No,
No.
I don't think so.
Oh, that's a great one.
Yeah, I don't think I have.
The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke.
I don't think I've watched that one.
Yeah, I'd go watch that one.
Yeah, I'm
How
kind
about
of.
Nacho Libre?
Oh yeah,
That's my dad's favorite movie.
Do you see? There's a lot of people like going against Jack Black's Santa movie, like Satan movie. It's like Santa, like somebody writes a note to Santa, but they spell it wrong, so it goes to Satan. They're like
he loves that Satan stuff.
They're like Tenacious D.
Is that based? Is that a satanic thing?
I mean, that's his music band.
Is that based on Satan?
There's a lot of Satan in it.
Oh yeah, he's been about that for a
Yeah.
long time. I will say that School of Rock is probably one of the greatest movies ever made, though. That movie was written for him.
Great movie. Yeah, absolutely was. Nobody else would have played that part.
You're tacky and I hate you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Anyways, that's where we're at. It's not Christmas yet. About to be Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
If you're hunting this
Merry
week,
Chrysler.
we may have a bunch of Southerners
Merry
now
Crisis.
after Williams' episode. So if you're hunting this week in the South, enjoy the rut. You suck because you still have a great season ahead of you. We're all depressed in the Northeast and Midwest because it's about over. And other than that, be safe. Happy holidays. We'll see you next week.
Later.
Take me